All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ Podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. We hope that you enjoy.
It's been a long time since we've rock and rolled, but that all changes this August as Rockin' Pod returns to Nashville. This annual convention brings together rock artists, fans, and podcasters for an unforgettable rock experience. Special guests this year include Billy Sheehan, Ron Keel, Don Jameson of That Metal Show, and current and former members of Winger, LA Guns, Accept, and more. Stage panels, signing sessions, and photo ops will be available, plus lots of vinyl and memorabilia vendors. Music podcasters from all over North America will be appearing on site for live interviews, speaking sessions, networking, and more. Got a music podcast? Register and join us. Rockin' Pod Weekend kicks off with a pre-party featuring former Tesla guitarist Tommy Skio and his new band Resist and Bite, making their debut performance, as well as a rare hair set featuring surprise guests performing all-time classics. Rockin' Pod Weekend takes place August 6th through the 8th in Nashville, Tennessee. Tickets, VIP passes, podcast registration, and discounted hotel rooms are available now at rocknpod.com. Rockin' Pod is brought to you by DBG Productions, Bradley Entertainment, and Inceptia.
Welcome to episode 355 of the KissFAQ Podcast. I'm your host, Julian Gill. Today I'm joined by Daniel Wees, who's staying up late just to hang out with us.
Yeah, because I can, and I'm on a holiday as usual.
Socialist.
Nice. All the way, man.
Also, Ken 69th Blizzard.
Hello there.
And St. Louis Kiss Lonnie.
What's up?
You know, Europe, free healthcare, lots of holidays. My sister's always posting that she's going on another vacation, another holiday. Like, damn it. All right, so what news? Well, obviously today the Walmart Mania LP thing dropped, became available for order. Which ones of you are sheep and went out and got that? Come on, admit it.
Right here.
Kissworld, of all things, in red vinyl. Yeah. And you know what? It actually looks good. What do you think, Lonnie?
It looks better than the original colored vinyl, actually. I think the red is actually looks really crisp and it complements it a whole lot better than the yellow did. I don't know. I'm a sheep, I guess. I saw it this morning. I'm like, ooh, people were commenting that they couldn't get it. I logged on, I was able to get it, and I'm like, all right, I got it. Probably should have ordered a couple and then made my money back, but then people would start screaming at me on the internet.
They'd harass you. They'd call you a communist or something. They'd call you names. But who would have ever thought that people would end up with 5 copies of Kissworld?
Right, no doubt. When it came out originally in Europe a few summers ago, when they were touring Europe, the Kissworld tour, and we all just kind of rolled our eyes at it. Oh, geez, another compilation. Who cares? You know. Now I have multiple copies of this greatest hits.
What do you do with all this stuff?
Oh, I look at
it. do you open it, or you don't even open it? You just put it in. I don't get it. I don't get it.
No, that's why we're Kiss fans. We buy 3 of everything: one to open, one to store, and one to sell to try and make enough money back to pay for the other 2 copies that we bought.
I actually bought another book, The Ultimate Kiss Fanzine Phenomenon. I don't know if you've read it. I thought that was kind of cool. It's an old book, but
that was Ken Sharp, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's mostly interviews with Nico and people who ran fanzines. Kind of cool to like a document of that period.
All the fanzines, yeah.
Yeah, actually, most of them were active in the 90s, where just because there weren't any Kiss news, so they popped up all over the place. I thought it was kind of cool to read. I read it this weekend. Kind of a cool book.
No, that is cool, and Who knows? There are
You can
some...
actually use it. You can actually use it and look at it and read it, and you learn something from it. So that's my cup of tea.
Yeah, Ken bought anything?
No.
What?
No, like I was on the, like I told Lonnie, I was on the fence about the Kissworld, the red vinyl. So we'll see. Anything's possible.
Yeah. So who
Sorry,
knows?
people work for the fucking alarm company. No one knows how to set the damn thing.
Tell us how you really feel. So there's a couple of topics. Daniel's come up with a good one for us to talk about. It's going to be, the non-U.S. tours and our perspectives, since 3 out of 4 of us did not go to any of these non-U.S. tours. But 83 to 95, basically. We're just going to talk about those, some of the high points and low points of each one of these. You came up with a whole bunch of really cool metrics that I just didn't have the energy to kind of deal with. But we are going to go by those. The set list, the stage and special effects, the energy, the chemistry, original ideas, staging and costumes. We're going to wrap it into a little bit less mathematical, just for perspectives on these tours, and maybe try and determine which one of these was the greatest non-American tour in that period. 76 and 80 don't count. You got to take 80 out because obviously Hysteria in Australia just skews the whole equation. But just a couple of quick topics from the board, because I did see one today that really did kind of pique my interest. Daniel, what 3 deep cuts would you play to someone who doesn't know Kiss?
Well, it all depends, but if I would pick 3 that I really like that I don't think people in general like, I would pick, like I've Had Enough, Into the Fire, King of the Mountain, and Unholy, I think. Those 3. I would go a bit, 80s and 90s on them. Yeah.
Nice. Lonnie, he called Unholy a deep cut. Which 3 would you pick?
I agree.
Yeah,
I agreed on Holy is a deep cut. It's not mainstream. I don't hear it on the radio. I think, I'm gonna go the route of, what would I play for someone who doesn't know Kiss? The casual Kiss fan knows the songs that they may hear on the radio. Rock and Roll All Night, I Was Made for Loving You, Shout It Out Loud, A Dr. Love, things like that. And that's really about it that you might hear on the radio. But I would go Unholy as well. I agree with Daniel. It's a big shocker. I'm going to say that, but I'd also go with Love Her All I Can, because I think it's really poppy and really catchy, and I think that could. Oh, I didn't realize that. Someone might, when they think of Kiss, they might think, well, it's really really heavy, and Unholy is heavy, but they're also this. They're very. It's a wide variety of music genre. And then I'd go Come On and Love Me too. I'm gonna go double dip on Dress to Kill.
Dress to Kill.
Why not? Pop Perfection.
Right.
Both of those. And that was actually going to be one of my picks, but I'll go last. Ken.
Am I on mute? No.
No, you're not now.
Okay.
Murder in High Heels. Dance
Murder
All
in
Over
High
Your
Heels.
Face.
No. Well, first of all, I would have to think of who I'm talking to about this, because, based on whatever music they listen to, if they listen to all pop, I'm going to maybe choose a little bit of this or that. And then if they're really, really into heavy, hard stuff, then I may pick a different set of 3 songs. But just to pick a few, I'll go with, I was thinking Come On and Love Me, too, also. I also thought maybe Charisma. I'm going a little bit more of the poppier side. But then maybe throw them one hard one in there. Something like, Not for the Innocent or something like that, just as a variety. But normally what I do, like I said, I would pick either 3 more of the poppier stuff, or I just pick more of the heavier stuff, because usually, a person and this one person listens to this or that style of music most of the time, then I'd go with whatever was kind of in that, close to what they like.
Yeah, I think Come On and Love Me, as I've already mentioned, is just poppy 70s Kiss. Great, even haters, you'd probably be able to get them to enjoy that one. I think Daniel nails it with Unholy. That's a very good pick, and I'm going to agree with that. And then I would go with something that maybe they saw on MTV in the 80s and didn't realize or don't remember, and Tears Are Falling. Simply go with that, somewhat popular one from the 80s, which never did become massive, but might just jog their memory. And just because, again, it was that first song for me. I'm going to have to take a phone call. So, Daniel, do you want to lead the guys into the discussion?
I have an additional question.
Go ahead.
In the same realm, so to speak. I think if you're at a party and you can only show one short music video from Kiss, which one would you pick? Because that's very common over here when you're at a party. Everyone has that big TV and YouTube is on, and people pick music videos. Which one would you pick? If you were with guys who didn't know that much about Kiss, and you would like to show them a video that you knew was very good.
And they didn't know Rock and Roll All Night either.
They probably know Rock and Roll.
They probably know that.
But that's about it.
Okay, something else. A video, like one song or
one song that they can put on.
I think of their
4
video.
Minutes of Bliss. Yeah, I can start. I would choose.
I got one.
Okay, you got one.
Good.
I Love It Loud.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's hard to
I mean, that is just a great video with a great stage and the whole thing. So,
Yeah, true. What about Lonnie?
That's good. I was thinking I Love It Loud. But I think I'm gonna go with their videos are different.
Some are really bad.
You know what I mean? You think about MTV's heyday, and like, some of them are a little cringeworthy.
All Hell's Breaking Loose.
Turn on the night. All Hell's Breaking
Crazy Nights videos are kind of cringeworthy.
All night, yeah.
But
we also have videos from Psycho Circus, Modern Day Delilah. You have those as well.
Modern Day Delilah one's not bad.
No,
I'll go Modern Day Delilah. That's not bad. I think they could have. They tried to be as pure as possible on that, and just the band on stage and the crowd, and just like a simple, old school type music video. Modern Day Delilah is actually a good pick. I'm gonna go with that. What's yours?
I always pick the same one, and people their jaws drop. I always pick Unholy, and they say this is Kiss because it's so raw and brutal, and I really like the video as well, even though it might feel a bit dated with the black and white now and so on, but I still think it kind of holds up.
Well, and the no makeup probably throws people off too, just to begin with.
Yeah, that's true.
They're just so. I heard they didn't wear makeup for a while, but even the band just ignores that era completely too. So.
Yeah, it's become a little bit better. You get the T-shirts here and some stuff, but really they haven't done a lot about the non-makeup era. There's a whole lot they could do with it, but
I would have loved if they had done a War Machine video. I mean, that would have been...
Yeah, that could have been real cool.
They could have done cool stuff with that.
We'll see next year, 2022. I mean, there's an anniversary coming up, Lonnie, isn't it?
Right.
Or
the anniversary of Creatures of the Night. They can do
and also
Revenge.
Yeah,
Revenge. That could be.
So.
Well, the Elders this year.
If they would do anything that has to do with the non-makeup era, I think it's Revenge all the way, because I think they still are kind of proud about that record and the way they looked, and everyone is satisfied with how they looked, even Gene. So there might be something down the line next year, hopefully at least. Okay, should we move over to the topic? I think Julian altered it a bit, but from what I understand, we're going to have a look at the non-American tours from 83 to 95. So it's basically the non-makeup era, starting off with the Lick It Up tour and ending in Australia. I think was the last one they did in '95. So we'll just start with the Lick It Up tour, and I think the one who should start this one is the Lick It Up fan number one, Ken. What do you have to say about? I guess they played Europe, and that was it. They didn't
I guess
go
according to Julian, they started in Lisbon.
Portugal. Yeah,
Lisbon.
yeah, Portugal.
Oh, the Portugal one, right.
Yeah, Lisbon
was
is
the first
the
one.
capital. Yeah.
And then the second one, I think, was Lisbon, right? According to this book, I believe. Yeah, I mean, I was reading in that book about the story of the first show, where it was rumored that Gene Simmons had possibly spit blood in that show, but
it was up on the board today. Did you see the pictures that they posted on the board?
Did they do some fake ones again?
No, fake ones, but they showed his moves. He did all the moves that he did in.
Oh yeah,
the
old
creature
stuff,
store.
the moves. Yeah, he was still in that
rolling
demon
his
mode.
eyes and demon mode. Yeah.
Exactly. And then there's the other story about earlier on that tour where the guy, his bass tech, Gene's, was giving him the solution or the gasoline or whatever for breathing fire, but he gave him the wrong stuff. He didn't give him the stuff that burns out quickly and disappears. He gave him a more potent thing, and it just like torched everything, and it even like was burning on the like the mic stand with the picks or something like that. So some crazy stuff like that happened, but.
There aren't a lot of videos around from the Lick It Up era, but
no.
you have some footage from that first show, I think, from Portugal that you can take into account, and then there's some from S, isn't it, or was it the Creature Store Essen? I don't remember.
Yeah,
the
thing that stands out about this tour, I know I saw them in here, but over there, I was looking at the set list at the Lisbon one. And I noticed what's interesting is they only had 6 songs from the makeup. Well, not makeup, but I would say the 70s.
Heyday type
only
songs, yeah.
6
starting
songs.
fresh,
and 3 of them were from the first album.
Rebooting.
Only 1 from Destroyer, I think. And there was another. What was the other one? Rock and Roll Night, of course.
Rock and Roll Night.
And it's just like, wow, they just it was loaded with Creatures stuff and Lick It Up.
Yeah,
they were proud of those records.
Yeah, they should be.
Yeah, and they were trying to
remarket and rebrand themselves.
Rebrand and kind of push away from what they were, I guess, in the 70s. Like you said, remarket, rebrand, start over, a new start. Therefore, the no makeup. So. Yeah.
So what do you say about the chemistry on stage with Vinny, and also the look of the stage, and maybe what about the effects they used?
Yeah, well, the effects were definitely toned down. I know they toned them out anyway, but even the concert I saw, because they toned down the where they played, there was no effects. There was no fire or anything. It was just the explosion and smoke coming out of the turret. Right. Otherwise, there was no effects. So they calmed that down. So they had to do it with their energy, which they had a lot of, and they didn't have the added weight of all the costumes and the boots and stuff. So they could run around, jump around. So the chemistry is okay. I don't know if Vinny ever fit in totally. He was kind of just that guy, new guy still at that point, even though it was the second tour. So, the staging is great. I mean, there's a great stage, but to tell you the truth, I think this tank stage just worked better still with the makeup. I just think I don't know what it was. Something about them in makeup with what they were wearing on that stage was pretty much the ultimate. Their new outfits or whatever they were wearing, torn clothes and ratty stuff they picked up at the homeless shelter. I don't know. It just didn't. I don't think work too well.
But all in all, you think it looked pretty cool, and they had a lot of energy. And
at the time, it looked pretty cool. I didn't care for the extra, makeup or blush they were putting on their cheeks, and then the eyeliner, that sort of thing. Yeah. Otherwise, it was okay.
What about you, Lonnie?
Yeah, I remember, maybe it wasn't Lick It Up exactly, but pretty early on, and I was a kid, and my dad saying, "Well, they wear just as much makeup now as they did before." I don't really know what the whole deal is about. And I remember my dad saying that when I was really, really young. So, but no, I think it's an excellent point with that set list, that they really were trying to step away from being the band that they were in the 70s and showcasing those last two albums. Creatures hadn't sold very well at that point, and never did really sell extremely well, but they were still proud of it, and they were really proud of Lick It Up. And they wanted a few more songs to round out the set list besides just those two albums, so why not Detroit Rock City and Firehouse, because we're still going to breathe the fire, and Rock and Roll Night. So and they played Cold Gin as well, but they looked, I think, it was a new energy for him. I'm sure it just felt free, like Ken said, that you could all of a sudden I can run around on stage without 7-inch platform heels on and 30 pounds of armor weighting me down all of a sudden. I mean, it's like a baseball player puts a weight on his bat when he's in the on deck circle and goes up to swing, and all of a sudden, I got a whole lot more bat speed all of a sudden. So
I don't get those baseball references.
I'm sorry. So but I think it was liberating for him taking it off, and it brought new energy. But definitely a neat tour to look at, their first few dates in Europe without the makeup.
Lonnie, you said about the weight of the costumes, 30 pounds. You notice how now it's like 50 pounds.
Oh yeah,
but the thing is, wait a minute, technology has come so far where you can create things that are much lighter nowadays than they were, with the same kind of sturdiness or whatever. But the weight keeps going up. It's like, wait a minute, that math doesn't work.
You would think they would have made.
You're saying they're lying to us?
And the band gets older too. You'd think they'd make them a little lighter and a little more easier for them. But
exactly.
No, we're going to punish you. I don't care if you're 65. This costume is going to be heavier than last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but when I watched the Lick It Up tour, that's what stands out: the energy from the band, the way they run around. Even Paul seems more energetic. I didn't even think it was possible, but his running around, the few clips I've seen, it looks real cool. And you can, of course, see more of it in the Animalize video that came 1 or 2 years later. But Gene really looks strange. I mean, he doesn't really seem to be knowing what he's supposed to be doing. But he's still running around a whole lot, so it kind of makes up for it that way. But it's pretty obvious that he was the one who struggled the most. Vinny, I think, fits in just fine and does a hell of a job, except for playing the solos a bit too long at times. But other than that, it looks great, and I like the tank as well. But they had no effects, and the tour didn't do that well either. But I think it was cool that they stayed behind the Creatures of the Night album, because usually when something flops for Kiss, they just say, we hate that record. It's the worst thing we've ever done. But here they managed to see the quality and managed to see that they had some really good, strong songs that they could use live, and they stayed with it. And So I like the set list, and I think it was the only way to go. Reboot, restart, and start building up once again. So I like the tour. I think it works fine. So let's hear what Julian has to say about the Lick It Up European tour.
I think you guys covered it all, really. I think Gene is like he's still in makeup and costume, still behaving, with those mannerisms. And we've talked about how he was the last to get comfortable in his own skin, many times before. I think the set list is the biggest deal for the European tour, how they came out with, 6 songs or 5 songs from the album, and kept in songs from Creatures, so it really skewed the whole dynamic of the show and brought it kicking and screaming into the mid-'80s. It's like they jettisoned their past to a certain extent. Paul's energy on stage, fantastic. Daniel, you said that Vinny was just perfectly fine, except for what he did to a few solos. Eric was completely comfortable in his unitard. So there wasn't that much of a change for Eric, because he just really kept wearing the same kind of thing back there, and no one could really see what he was wearing, so it didn't matter. But for the frontmen, Paul instantly took to that frontman role, but he also redefined himself. His raps changed a lot. But he flipped a switch, and then he never switched again. You have 80s Paul, you have makeup Paul, and, he doesn't change up much in between. It's the same stories for the next 5 years in between songs. So great energy. The tank, I think it was smart for them to reuse that, even though there was limited additional effects, and that had happened in the U.S. as well, a decreasing amount of effects. They still kept a lot of the same sound effect tapes, the turbines, and all the stuff that had been. They're playing background effects during solos and sequences. So for the Europeans, I think they got the best of both worlds, because they got a very raw Kiss debuted on them. A very uncomfortable Kiss as well in some ways. So Lick It Up tour, fantastic.
But in Scandinavia, this was a real restart for Kiss. They had a lot of magazines that helped them promote the record and the tour. For example, the OK magazine did loads of stuff of Kiss, and they became, I think, more popular than they had ever been, actually, in the early 80s. And then they started dropping fans maybe around 85, 86. But for a few years there, they were top of the line, and people thought they were the biggest thing around, even if they weren't. So Sweden was really excited to have them over here, even though they just
What were the best bootlegs from that tour? The Tickler, that's Scandinavium and Gothenburg, or Göteborg, however you say it. Those are really some of the most popular bootlegs from the tour are from Sweden.
Yeah. But when you hear fans who attended, they were kind of shocked, because they were expecting this big, huge stage with bombs and everything. And then they played I know they played a place in the south of Sweden that with an attendance of a maximum attendance of 2,500 people. So they played pretty small places, and they didn't have a lot of effect. So some people were a bit disappointed, but I guess they managed to make up for it with the energy, and the album was strong and a success, of course. So that was a first for a few years at least. I mean, they had a strong record that actually sold. So I'm kind of surprised it didn't do more in America when it comes to attendance numbers. I mean, they were around 5,000.
Too much competition. Too much competition.
Maybe, too much new bands coming up, being more popular.
I mean, if you go back and you look at like box office, box scores and receipts, there were the bands that were up here, and there were the rest that pretty much were all jammed within a pretty reasonable range, and Kiss was right in there. They just couldn't break out of that for the 80s, where some other bands that had similar sorts of issues did manage to break out. Kiss just stayed in the middle of the pack for much of it. So you're going to keep on hosting, Daniel. Keep going.
No. You take over.
All right, so let's jump into Animalize, the next tour, because come September 1984, they're back in Europe again. There's obviously one big difference is the guitarist has changed. But what else changed? Daniel, then, I'm going to start with you on your thoughts of this tour.
Well, I think they managed to continue the success they had with Lick It Up. I mean, Animalize might not be as strong of an album, but it sold more in America, and they had a big hit with Heavens on Fire. It might be the most popular song over here from Kiss still to this day. And they continued to try to reboot themselves and stray away from the early stuff. And now they had 3 pretty good albums in a row. So they managed to put pretty new songs into the set list, which made them feel kind of like they were current, you know. They didn't feel like the old band of the 70s. They felt like a current band. And they still, even though they had Murder in High Heels and all that shit on the album, they had a few strong ones. They had I've Had Enough Into the Fire, which was played several times in Europe. I mean, throughout the UK, I think they played that one, and maybe for a few more dates. And they also had Under the Gun, which I like, and which is up-tempo song that fits the Kiss show, and they had Heavens of Fire, and later on I think they added Thrills in the Night as well to the set list, and they still had all the great songs from Lick It Up, like Fits Like a Glove and Lick It Up, and also a few of the Creatures songs. So and they made a new stage, but not for the European tour. They actually reused one of the old ones, but I think it looks kind of
Unmasked. Right.
Yeah, the unmasked stage, but they repainted it, put some leopard paintings on there, and then I think it looked good enough. They still had the cool classic Kiss logo in the back, and so I think the Animalize tour was a bit of a step up, and Gene was a bit more comfortable in his role, and Bruce, they call him Spruce, meaning he just stands around. I don't think he just stood around, but what he did do was play every song very, very good. So they sounded great, and they could rely on him, and he was a team player and all that stuff. So I think as a band, they felt more comfortable because they didn't have to deal with Vinny and his strange manners all the time. They had Bruce, they knew what to expect, and they could, plan ahead and knew what was coming. And I think that tour is really, really good, and probably the most successful of the 80s, I think. And even in America, they managed to put some people in the seat once again. So that was really cool. I like the tour.
Yeah, so starting out the tour, again, they had 5 songs from the new album, just like they did the previous year. So that's incredible when you think of it. 2 albums, 10 songs debuting on the first nights of the tour. Obviously, 2 of them didn't last because, Animalize simply doesn't have the same proportion of quality material on it. But, Burn Bitch Burn, get all you can take. Yeah. But then again, then you do get Thrills in the Night getting added later, like Daniel said. Lonnie, what are your thoughts on the Animalize tour, the Unmasked stage?
The Unmasked stage. I think it's good, and I really like how much new material they're playing at the time, and really just really going for this rebranding effort that they've put in. They've released 2 non-makeup albums 2 years in a row now. They're this is who we are. We're proud of who we are now. The makeup's fine, but this is who we are now, and they're really proud of it. I still think Gene looks goofy, and I think that's going to be a reoccurring theme going here for the next few tours. The Gene wigs on the Animalize tour look especially bad, but that's he had a lot of outside interests at the time, but he still showed up for the tours, obviously. Like I said, I think it's great. All the new material. I can't get over that when I look at it and see all the new material that is being played off these 3 albums. Because when a band tours now, and especially like a classic band like Kiss tours now, you might get one if they have a new album. You might get one. You might get 2 songs off a new album, but because everybody wants to hear the hits. Well, they were ignoring the hits. They were ignoring their success that they had the previous decade. And yeah, they did play Rock and Roll Night. Yeah, they did play Detroit Rock City, but they were putting it all out there for these 3 albums in a row, which are good albums. Putting it out there that this is who we are moving forward, like it or not.
Well, damn right.
Yeah.
Ken.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you guys say. I also noticed, and it's kind of like the last one, they only played 5 songs from the 70s again. And that got me thinking, because I remember, these tours, because I was around going to these shows, at least, here in the U.S. The big shock that we got later on, that when they started to play the old songs again, which they weren't playing through these first few tours, because they were straying away from the old stuff, 70s stuff, and it was such a great thing later on when we it was a double-edged sword, because you got a lot of the new songs that were on the newer albums, which were all great, and then you lost it there. But then later on, it was kind of cool when some of the songs started coming back into the set list, such as Hot when Hot in the Shade happened. That really kind of everything hit at that point. You kind of had the perfect set list at that time. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I think the stage, it's a money savings thing to save money, like they did with Look It Up and the tank stage. Another thing I remember, I think Animalize was their, they were ascending again at that point, where, Creatures and Look It Up is a little bit level or going a little down, but the attendance was really starting to pick up again in Animalize. And I noticed it when I saw the Animalize tour here. I almost got trampled, It was crazy. It really was. The fans were kind of really nuts. They had this barricade and people were pushing and everything. It was crazy. Like, what's going on here? This hasn't happened in a while for Kiss. So I think it was a real cool tour.
And I found my mute button. You would think with how often we do these shows that it would be instantaneous. We all know where our mute button is, but it seems to afflict me every time I do a call. Animalize. Yeah, it's in some ways it's a step up from Lick It Up, but it doesn't supersede. I prefer Lick It Up, the tour, the sets, the shows, to Animalize, because that's where the tempo increase starts. And I really don't like the speed at which the songs are being performed. I've already mentioned that I'm happy with the songs that they introduce. I've Had Enough, Into the Fire live. That is really good. I do love Under the Gun. Even at that tempo is perfectly fine. And Heaven's on Fire is a fantastic song live. Costumes. Vast improvement on Lick It Up. That is one area where now it feels like they have a little bit more of a unified approach to the theme of the tour, whereas each one of them seemed to be dressing themselves for Lick It Up, and in Gene's case, someone should have been giving him advice a little bit more. And Paul, for that matter, with his ripped jeans and they didn't look good on Lick It Up, but they started to look more like what other bands were doing in the mid-'80s. So a consistency. Yeah, well, it went with the theme. For better or worse, it was at least an improvement. And then the audiences certainly do, help, I'm sure, as does changing the opening song back to Detroit Rock City. On the previous tour, it had been, they've been opening with Creatures. Now they go back to at least a little bit more traditional. and they're closing the shows with Black Diamond, which I don't know whether I really care. I wasn't there. Ken was. I don't know if I care if Rock and Roll All Night is the last song of the night or whether that's just the last song before the encores. I don't know if it matters to me. So in every way other than the set and the speed, it's an improvement. It's certainly much better in that sense.
Real quick on that set list, when I was in high school, I was talking to a guy at the record store I was at, and he was talking to me that he had saw Kiss on the Animalize Tour, and as a 17-year-old kid, I'm like, oh, I can entranced by it, like, really, he's like, yeah, they came out and they played Detroit Rock City and Cold Gin. I'm like, all right, this is great. He goes, and then they started playing all this other weird shit, and I just wasn't into it at all. So it's just like, we're sitting here praising the set list, saying, oh, it's great, they're playing this new stuff. Like, I don't think it was received at that time by everyone as, oh, this is great. I think a lot of people, especially maybe fans that saw them, 8 years ago in '76, are like, well, no, this isn't what I want to see. Kiss. I want to see the band that I saw 8 years ago and hear those songs that got me into Kiss. So I think it is still a double-edged sword, even then, where people are like, want to hear the songs that got them into the band, not the new stuff, even back then, even much as we're praising the set list. So
there's a never-ending battle. I mean, when it comes to Animalize as well, is one of Paul's main rap was the Michael Jackson doll and bashing Michael Jackson and doing, the little voices. I mean, that is a low point for me for Paul's raps in concert. True. Just how, he started to swear a lot more, trying to be so, edgy.
Tough and cool.
And there's some bands that swear and it's just part of their natural essence.
Yeah.
Paul Stanley doesn't strike me as that sort of person who sits around in casual conversation with that single glass of wine from which only a sip is taken, effing and blinding and getting his little doll out of his jacket pocket to, make fun of. It's just Mean Girls.
You could have had a fight with the Michael
Vinnie
Jackson
doll.
and the Paul Stanley doll. Oh, yeah.
The Vinnie Vincent doll and the Michael Jackson doll.
The Vinnie Vincent doll.
But I think the band benefited a lot from a greater attendance at the concerts, because I think especially Paul feeds off the audience, and he could certainly feel that more people were coming to the show. He got excited. He performed even better, and of course he was happier. And when Paul's happy, the band around him is also happy. And that leads into the next tour, the European tour, where I think he might not have been as happy, and it might have affected the chemistry and the way the band performed.
Well, one last point before we move, we jump forward 2 years, is what a difference opening act makes. Because in '84 in Europe, he had Bon Jovi, who were on their ascendancy, who were a much... I'm sorry, who did he have
Helix.
The year before? Helix?
Yeah, Helix.
And the other band. God, I can't even remember. I've got a copy of Kiss Alive Forever right here. Except I'm wearing my glasses, so I can't see shit.
Give me an R! Oh, that was Helix, wasn't it?
Yeah, but in England they had... God. Heavy Patton. Who Gene was trying to sell demos to. Yeah, so both of those. Helix was okay, but Helix only really ever had one song.
Yeah.
So let's move on to Crazy Nights. They skip Asylum, and they come back to Europe for Monsters of Rock. They start off in London at the Marquee Club, and then they do Monsters of Rock at Donington, and move on to doing a Monsters of Rock tour throughout Europe, and then do some selective it transitions into a regular headlining tour. So Ken.
Yes. Yeah, well, again, I noticed, now this is where the beginning of the starting to add more of the classic Kiss songs to back into it went from 5 to 10, I think. Something like that. which you could see, and then they're starting to, okay, well, we're starting to remember there. We had some good songs there, and a lot of these people that are coming to the concert are fans from probably, half, at least more than half, are going to be the diehard Kiss fans back then. Less casual fans anyway. So yeah, the Crazy Nights thing, maybe it was more exciting there, hopefully, than it was here. I don't know. But here it was kind of not their, in my opinion, their best tour. And the stage was okay. What stage did they use in England?
No stage.
It wasn't really any,
Amplifiers.
just pretty basic, nothing, right?
Very basic.
Yeah, yes. They should have probably used something else, but I think it was too expensive to, sometimes they would pick, as they did like with Lick It Up, they didn't use the Asylum stage with, the huge Kiss logo and so on. I mean, the Asylum stage was pretty cool. Well, the logo was the big deal. It made it look really cool, and they were, at that time, they were very colorful in their outfits, obviously. Now looking back at it, it's kind of crazy, but it did have its cool look. But now with Crazy Nights, they did kind of had their a little bit better outfits in general, doing their own thing. They weren't kind of copying each other. Gene had his own thing. Bruce had his own style. Paul, of course, had his own, so everyone was being more individualistic and not kind of copying anything else, as far as I can tell. And Julian's on mute again. You're fired. That's it.
Podcasting slow.
That's okay. My monitor died. You try doing this without a monitor.
Is that right?
It keeps flickering back to life. So, Daniel, what are your thoughts on Crazy Nights? Obviously, in Europe, you would have had a little bit different perspective because the album was received differently. In
the UK, at least.
Well, in the UK, but, what happens in the UK affects all of Europe.
Yeah, not as much as it used to.
Brexit.
You're all alone on that island, out of the EU now and everything. We'll see how it goes for England in the long run. Well, anyway, I think Crazy Nights was their worst tour for a long time, and I think there are probably a few reasons why they started playing classics. One is, of course, they didn't have new songs that could be played live and get people to root for them, because the songs were just not good enough. I mean, Crazy Nights it works great live, but I don't know after that if they had any more songs on that album that went over well with the audience. Surely they tried Reason to Live, but I don't know. I don't think it was a hit live. No, and after that, you really don't have anything. Bang Bang You they played for a while. That's like worst choice ever. One of the worst songs, in my opinion. Maybe if they had Sword and Stone on the album or something, they could have added more songs. But they simply didn't have the new material, so they had to stray away from the original plan with playing a lot of songs from the latest record. So they had to add new songs. And of course, as time goes on, you start looking back more, and you feel maybe it's okay to play these songs again, and you start playing them again. So I think the set list, sure, it was okay, but the new songs didn't work at all. If you look back at previous tours, they always had at least 3 or 4 songs that were real great. So that was a problem, and the staging was a real problem. It was so they had nothing on stage, and the amplifiers. Hopefully there were speakers in them. We don't know, but and I think the band looked kind of tired. And once again, I think at least Paul feeds a lot of the audience. And this tour, they didn't have great attendance in Europe and not in America either. So I think I mean, there are some famous quotes from him floating around that they should buy 2 pizzas for all of the audience and stuff like that. So I think if he's down, he will start picking on other band members and he will drag them down. And it won't be a fun tour for the rest of the guys either. And that's pretty obvious. And from what I've seen from the American Crazy Nights tour, like that Philadelphia show, it's awful. I mean, if you compare that to Hard in the Shade just a few years later, it's like night and day. So I don't really like the Crazy Nights tour, and I'm not sure if I like the costumes. Gene looks all right. Paul,
Bruce,
I don't know if I like. What's the symbol? Is wearing some sort of atomic bomb?
Yeah, the nuclear.
Yeah. I mean, Bruce, the dangerous nuclear atom man. I don't feel it like he's the session player, the nice guy. So I felt it didn't fit him at all. And Eric looked all right. But the next tour, they started to look a whole lot better. The next European tour.
Yeah, Paul Stanley in his Back to the Future sneakers.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
What was that?
They were the ones where you could pump up.
Yeah, they were like junior moon boot trainers.
I remember those.
All right, Lonnie, Crazy Nights tour.
Crazy Nights tour. What really stands out to me is Black Diamond, like 5 songs into the set list.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's very different.
That's wrong. Very wrong.
Very wrong and very different. And just
should be later.
I wonder how I would feel standing in the audience and 5 songs in we go on the Black Diamond. I'd be like, are they sick? Are they calling it quits all of a sudden that we're playing Black Diamond?
Better eat my pizza quickly.
It's almost as goofy as playing Rock and Roll Night in the middle of the set list like they
do which is
on the Revenge tour.
Yeah.
Very, very differently. If it's not broke, don't fix it. It works at the end. Leave it there. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's interesting when you look at the set list that these songs are coming back. I Was Made for Loving You is back in the set list. We hadn't heard that in several years at that point. As big of a hit as it was for them, they had completely ignored it for several years, even touring Europe. And Strutter's in there, and obviously Love Gun, and Shout It Out Loud's back, and we're starting to look back a little bit and say, I think we can play these songs, and like Daniel mentioned though too, part of the reason for that is we didn't have really 5 great songs that we can bust out on this album to play for the audience. So I think obviously that plays a role in that, but. It's an interesting set, and the first time they've ever opened with Love Gun, which does work as an opener. I like Love Gun as an opener, just a punch in the face type of opening song, because they open a lot of time. It's usually Deuce or Detroit Rock City, or you can almost bet on it being one of the two. But I like this as an opener, and I liked it when they did it on Rock the Nation tour. They opened with Love Gun too. It's just a change of pace type of opening song. So I think that's a really cool way to open the set. But
one more thing, wasn't it like a shorter set list than the previous tours? It felt like it was very short.
I think it was.
At least in America, it was definitely short.
Well, I think it was about the same in Europe.
Well, on the Monsters of Rock section, yeah, because it was part of a greatest hits, but a touring package, it was shortened. The American tour, the sets got shorter and shorter. But I would actually live for one thing. Before the end, for them to open up a show with Rock and Roll All Night, just to really flip people out, would be awesome. That would just mess with people's heads.
Yeah.
All right.
With the confetti at the beginning, too.
Yeah, do the full ending at the beginning.
It's like reversed everything. Yeah. Okay. Did I already talk about this? I did. Didn't I?
Did you? Okay, well I didn't. So, Crazy Nights tour. I think it's a completely different tour than the American one once you get to Europe, because you've got the greatest hits coming back in more. I think they really should have given it a second chance with more new material from the album, mainly Turn on the Night. But because it hadn't been a hit, it was still a single. I think they should have forced the issue. to represent, get rid of Bang Bang You. It should never have ever been performed any more so than Burn Bitch Burn. I mean, it's like, what are you thinking putting that crap in the set? You're left with just No, No, No and Crazy Nights. And as Daniel rightly points out, that was only really a hit in England. So for the rest of Europe, they're like, play something else. So it doesn't really work. The costuming is very bad. I love the addition of Gary Corbett because I think that really helps the sound of the show and makes it better. But, for that era, I'd rather watch Tokyo. I don't want to watch any of the Monsters of Rock stuff or any of the stuff that comes later. I certainly don't want to listen to any of the American shows either. You rightfully pointed out Philadelphia, just terrible. And Reason to Live is just such a set killer. There's no unity. It's like Lick It Up Again. All the costuming's individualistic. There's nothing. So there we go. Let's move on. Revenge in the Shade, as I call it. The English tour, because it wasn't European. They only did a promo tour of select cities after the fact, but it really is hot in the shade in England in 1992. You get the 2 songs off Revenge because it was released during the tour. You get Leon with the revenge look for the costuming. So costuming automatically is a win because they actually look great. Stage-wise, I say that's a win because Leon was really cool. And it wasn't the full Leon production. It was just the background, basically. You didn't have all the water pipes and those other things that very few people noticed in America during that tour. And then the set list. It's the music. You've got that fantastic set list with 2 new songs. So, Daniel, Europe 92 or England 92.
Yeah. My first time I was in England was 1 month after the tour, so I just missed it, unfortunately. And I still remember there were posters available in the record stores and posters of the album on the walls. So I think it was kind of popular. And from what I can see, the tour was quite a success, even though it seems they made no money on that tour. Maybe because they had recently hired Paul's psychologist or whatever that guy Jesse Hilson or whatever he's called. Maybe he funneled some money away. I don't know. But when you watch what's available from the tour, it looks simply awesome. As Julian mentioned, the costumes for once look great. Gene is menacing once again. Paul looks awesome. And Bruce is like he's found his place in the band and still plays real good and moves around a bit more. And it feels like he's a veteran now. He knows what he's doing. And the set list, I think this might be one of the best set lists ever. And I also like the combination of the Hot in the Shade tour and the Revenge tour. I think I prefer Leon to the Statue of Liberty. But then I prefer the Revenge setlist to the Hot in the Shade setlist. So you get the best of both worlds. And also they had a pretty strong record now. So instead of having to play, Rise to It and I don't even remember what else to play, Forever, and what else did they hide your? Well, they had a few good songs from Hot in the Shade, but I felt like Take It Off was a song that worked real well live, even though I could have done without the strippers. But Unholy never worked live, but they had a strong album. They had a new look, and Eric Singer on the drums. For me, it was better than with Eric Carr. The songs sounded so updated and current. I remember hearing I think they started with I Stole Your Love on that tour still, and that's maybe one of my favorite openers. And the way the club tour sounded, even in America, when you heard Eric for the first time, it was like, man, they sound like a real cool current band. And the old classics sounded also real cool. So all in all, if I'd pick one show that I could go to, it would, from all of the European tours from this era we've spoken about, I would pick maybe Wembley '92. That will be my pick because the stage is great, they sound great, and it felt like they were onto something, but then it fizzled out. I'm not sure why they didn't play more European cities. I'm sure they would have, had a much bigger success than on the Crazy Nights tour in at least Scandinavia. Surely they would have, well over 5,000 people at every concert. But somehow the people weren't ready to, put up the money to get them over to Scandinavia and more European countries. But this little small tour was just awesome.
They must have got burned really badly during the Crazy Nights tour for their
Probably.
still not to be able to bring them back for this, because they were a kick-ass rock and roll band again. Lonnie.
Yeah, they really were a kick-ass rock and roll band again at this point in their career. And like Daniel mentioned, just bringing Eric in just gave them this new, fresh, and updated sound. Almost nothing against Eric Carr. Eric Carr was absolutely fantastic in his era. But just as when Eric Carr came in, he gave them a fresh and updated sound in 1980 when he came in. Eric Singer did the same thing for him in 92, and I think just renewed the energy in the band, and the band just got that much tighter. And it's obviously my favorite musical era of the band. I think it's the greatest live era of the band, and this European tour in spring of 92 is just at its infancy. And we see as this lineup continues to tour into 94 and 95, how stronger they even get. You look at those South American shows in 94 and Japan and Australia in 95, they get even better. But this set list and these shows are fantastic. And they're playing that old stuff again. They're playing Parasite again. They're playing, some deeper cut, old school Kiss stuff, and just updating the sound to it. And the band is finally comfortable in their own skin, even more so than they were in Hot in the Shade. But we're trying to talk European and tours abroad on this show today. So the Europeans finally get a Kiss comfortable in their own skin without makeup. And these shows deliver, and like you guys said, I wish there would have been more of them, but like Julian said, they probably did get burned pretty badly.
Yeah, I think you just raised a very interesting point about the whole unoriginal era of the band, that they were comfortable as a band and they were firing on all cylinders. And you've used those metaphors, Lonnie, and I think that's absolutely true. When Eric Singer comes in, they no longer have Eric Carr, who they were having problems with between he and Paul in Hot in the Shade. And when Eric joined the band in 1980, they were having issues with Ace, not being 100%, and Gene being Hollywood and Paul being shopping. And then they move on and they've got Vinny, who's a problem throughout the tour. And then they're into the Bruce era, but getting comfortable with him. This is like the first time in many years that you've got a band that is comfortable, that is just kicking ass, with the music. So Ken, your thoughts about Hot in England?
Hot in England, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with y'all. It's Eric comes in, new energy. Plus, in the last couple tours, or they slowed the songs down, which helped too. It wasn't all that fast-paced stuff. But yeah, they used 15 songs from the 70s. I mean, they really went back and they pulled them all out. And then the rest was pretty much 80s stuff, and a little bit of Revenge. So yeah, it's a cool tour. Again, reusing a stage instead of spending the extra money to bring something over, especially when I don't know, was the new stage ready yet? I guess it was ready, huh? But
they'd been planning. Don't forget that they'd been planning to start the U.S. Revenge tour much earlier than it actually did, but it was postponed until later
That's
on.
where the club tour came in, yeah.
Yeah, so there probably wouldn't have been time for shipping it back and forth and then to do all the work that they needed to for it in the U.S.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, I mean, using that other stage, or at least part of the Hot in the Shade stage, was, probably a good idea. I mean, England had never seen it before, so, or Europe, that is. So, yeah, it's good. I think they were fully dedicated into the band of Kiss. There's nothing going on outside of Kiss with any of the members. So they were just, in sync and blowing people away with the, this current lineup, which was a really, really tight lineup.
Is it true that there's tape circulating from the Wembley show in mint condition? I've just heard rumors. Anyone who knows that
It'll
if
be
there is
off
any?
the soundboard,
off the soundboard.
No idea.
Julian's just smiling. Okay.
Julian probably knows.
Yeah.
Julian knows.
He's not going to tell any secrets.
No idea. No clue. I know nothing.
Because that would be like the holy grail for me, Man, the sound on that tour is just awesome, and the set list as well.
Well, let's wrap up with the last two tours before the reunion. And we've separated them out, but they're basically very similar. South America, or South of America, because it was Mexico as well, which is not South America, to be pedantic, in late 94, followed by Japan, Australia in 95. The main difference between the two tours, they're both very Spartan because they were traveling overseas in terms of staging. The costuming really didn't change too much from Revenge, if I recall correctly. The South American one, they opened with Creatures, and Japan, Australia, they opened with King of the Nighttime World. But I think for most fans of audio, these are the two tours where some of the king of this final lineup and all the praises that we just sung about England 92 kind of come to fruition. That the set list is just insanely long. It's so well balanced between the very best of the unmasked era and the classics, and the performances are just absolutely amazing. So visually, I do love Japan, because the stage is kind of neat. But conversely, South America 94, the stage is flat and kind of boring, but the audience makes it spectacular. So, Daniel, I'll start with you on those.
Well, South America, as you said, and as I said previously, they feed off the audience. And once again, they were able to play for huge crowds, and that certainly made them perform at the top of at the height of their powers. So the South American tour was a bliss for us Kiss fans, because we got some new videos, current videos of the band, because those videos were everywhere just a few months after the actual concerts. So I remember watching, especially the one from Chile, over and over again, and to this day I put it on once in a while. So the South American tour was great, even though, as you said, the stage wasn't that great. Even though they have the swings and the logo from the Hot in the Shade tour. They had like two separate staging ideas that they used. So
I think you're right, but I can only think of kind of the high angles looking down on them. So that may be true. Yeah.
So it was pretty good. Not a whole lot of effects. And if we talk about Japan and Australia, it felt more like a real tour when they were over there. Because if you look at Australia, for example, when they arrived at the airport, it was crazy. There's some footage. There was like hysteria all over again, like hundreds of persons greeting them. And they play for, I think, 10,000 people almost in Melbourne. And they play, I think, 2 nights or something like that. So they were hot over there. And the performances are great. The set lists are great once again. And Japan, unfortunately, there were a big earthquake or something just when they went over. I remember being a bit worried that something had happened to Kiss when they were there. But But so the attendances were affected by that. But if you look at Tokyo in '95 with the soundboard that goes to it, it's just awesome. So all of these tours, as you mentioned in the beginning, sound great and are well worth watching once again.
All right, Ken, I'm going to let Lonnie have the final word, so Ken, go next.
Yeah. Well, obviously, from watching videos and hearing audio from these, the tour, Monsters of Rock, and so on, South America, they did have a lot of great sound, great set lists, obviously, longer, and I don't know so much about the stages, like Daniel said, that they're kind of, pieced together from a couple of things, but that didn't matter as long as the music and their performance, I think, was so great. You didn't even care about whatever the stage was, because it sounded so darn good and tight and energetic. And I think, like you said, Daniel, that the bigger audiences, they fed off of that stuff. They hadn't seen that kind of thing in forever, a time. So it was a big, cool tour. I'd like to hear more audio and see more video from that tour. It'd be great to see.
All right, Lonnie.
And I alluded to it a few minutes ago already. Those 94, 95 shows are some of my favorite shows. And I talked about those 92 shows in Europe, how, and Julian expanded on how, the band is getting along again and they don't have a lot of internal conflict. When you're at work and you're working with someone in the office across from you or the cube next to you, and you just don't like the person, well, your performance suffers. But when they bring in someone else who, I kind of like the new guy they brought in, well, your work gets a little better. And then you build a little camaraderie with this guy, and all of a sudden, it really goes up. And that's what's happening here in 94, 95. These guys are really getting along, and they're feeling, and they're looking at each other like there's nothing in the catalog we can't play together and make it sound kick-ass at the same time. And it's so crazy because we all, any Kiss fan will sit here, if you have an open mind, any Kiss fan will sit here and agree that, this version of the band is maybe the best sounding version of the band ever live. And then it ceases to exist.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's funny how things happen.
Yeah. Funny that life. Funny old thing.
Yeah.
So let's end on, I think it's probably going to be clear. If you go back and listen to these tours, what do you listen to the most? Which tour and which show is kind of your king of the non-American tours? I mentioned Tickler, and I listened to that a lot back in the day, and I was thrilled when an upgrade of the full show circuit, finally came out, just because that was one of the classic bootlegs as well. But, in recent years, I've been listening to Tokyo 88 the most, which is really weird. It's one that I've just enjoyed listening to much more. And, before that, it was Tokyo 95 was my king of the 80s, or the Unmasked era. Ken?
Yeah, you mentioned 88. That is a very, very good one that I go back to sometimes, too. It's a little bit of everything. I really don't focus on... there's some great shows, but I don't keep listening to one over the other. I just kind of like to see the differences in the different tours and the music that they did and how they performed, even though some were not so great. For the most part, Crazy Nights for the most part, most of the tour. But yeah, Japan was great. That's part of that. But I don't. I go back to the some of the Hot in the Shade stuff. But I don't necessarily listen to, whatever they did over in Europe on that one. So, there's no real particular one, at least for me, that I go to. It's just kind of like the mood for me in picking some of the stuff at the time I listen to it.
Fair enough. Lonnie.
It's obvious what I'm going to say, but I love
the Wembley '92 soundboard, right?
Right. When's that coming out on off the soundboard? Speaking of off the soundboard, how about something from the '92 through '95 era? Let's celebrate that. Maybe next year. Daniel kind of alluded to it that next year is a big anniversary year. 2022 is a big anniversary year for Revenge and Creatures. Maybe they give us something off of Wembley '92, off the soundboard, something like that. Does it exist? I don't know. I'm not saying it does here, but how about something like that for the 30th anniversary of Revenge? Give us that. I mean, because they are labeling this Tokyo thing the 20th anniversary of this show. Well, how about the 30th anniversary of a Revenge show like this with this version of the band clicking on all cylinders?
Yeah, what the hell else can you say to that? It's the 30th anniversary of Revenge, 40th of Creatures, and 50th of Wicked Lester. They're your three releases for 2022. Now, Daniel.
Well, if I look back at the shows I've listened to the most, there are two that stands out, and the one is Japan '95, of course, just because the sound is so crisp and they play awesome. And the other one is actually a show from the American club tour of '92, Brooklyn. I think they play Brooklyn. It's just a raw. I think it's an audience recording, but it sounds real good. And it's really raw, and it's the start of the Revenge era, So it's the Revenge era in its infancy, and right off the bat, they sound great. So those are my two go-to shows, and of course some South American shows from '94. I still listen to those a whole lot.
All right. Well, great topic.
And I also want the 30th anniversary Wembley show.
There you go.
Next year.
Yeah, just think of the demos. Think of the outtakes. Yeah, and then some live stuff from that album. Maybe. Yeah, that would be really cool. That'd be very cool, actually. All right, there we are. So, what are your thoughts on the un-American tours? When Kiss goes un-American and tours outside of the United States or North America as it is, what are your favorite shows? What are your favorite aspects of them? Costumes, staging, things that you got to see. I mean, there's a lot of you who watch this show from Scandinavia and from Australia. So what are your thoughts specifically? Because I do watch our demographics. What are your standout shows? And if you have to pick one bootleg or one recording that you think everyone should listen to, that you think is the best representation from these tours, chime in. Let us know what it is. So that's it. That's our topic. Daniel, thank you for staying up late and coming up with the topic and taking over when I had to take the phone call. It's been one of those shows today. So for now, from Daniel, Lonnie, Ken, and myself, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we've broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.